So in the course of an hour and a half, you went from getting swept to two of your guys that are the cornerstones of the franchise getting named All-Stars to the general manager and the manager being fired. Just a roller coaster of a day for Nats
It's
fans
a roller coaster.
yesterday.
Well, I can tell you this. I didn't get the alert that James Wood them were going to the All-Star game, but I did get the alert that the two people were released. I'm riding down the highway and my watch went bzz, bzz, and I just happened to look and I saw Nats release. And I'm like, okay, so let me see what this is. So I hit the little thing and I said, oh, okay then. So my immediate thought was, and I don't know if people would agree with this, and this is nothing that was told to me or nothing like that. This is just, I think about how things work a lot. Rizzo hired Davey. And every time someone asked Rizzo about Davey, he kept saying, well, he won us a World Series here. That also puts a feather in your cap. So I think they got to a point where, okay, you're not going to let him go. We're going to let both of y'all go. And I know we'll talk to JP a little bit later, and I know JP always says that Rizzo was the best general manager in this area. So I started thinking about it a little bit. Is that very hard to say? When you had Ernie, you had Vinny, you had Bruce, Ron was partially one. I think the Caps general manager has always been stable. But when you compare them to people that had no success, is that saying a lot? And listen, I understand the business of professional sports. Hell, I was in it. You can be great in your past, but they're not going to keep you around just because of your past. You have to be doing it today. And you and I were talking before we started. It's never been a good bullpen. For the last 20 years, hasn't been a good bullpen.
Even when they won the World Series. It was
you had some great starters, but your bullpen sucked. Okay? That is something that's been a thing that goes with him a long time. So when you don't have those starters, you get what you're getting right now. Mackenzie Gore has had a marvelous year. But once he leaves the game leaves too. Because you put the other stuff in there and nothing happens. And eventually, hell, Andy Reid left Philly. Bill Belichick left New England. Great coaches get released. You know, great GMs get released if things get stagnant. And right now with this group, now we don't know if the guy they put as the interim GM is going to work. And I can say one thing to the learners. All fingers are pointing at you now. You can't sit up. You fired Davey, you fired Rizzo, but now they're gonna say, what the hell are the owners doing? Because nobody's gonna this new guy, the Barlow, his name Barlow. They're not giving him. They're not gonna expect him to come in and be great. He's been here under Rizzo. Okay, so when he steps in, they don't have enough experience for people to automatically throw everything to him. It's in your laps. Let's see if y'all gonna be able to lead this thing.
100%. And it's just crazy to see the change in all of this because they entered the month of June, BMitch, just 2 games under 500. They were 28-30. In the month of June, they went 7-19. Since that stretch now, they're 9-23, and they're 37-53 overall. And so any sort of move from a ball club that is 37-53 shouldn't be shocking because this is a wins and losses business. And I thought Barry Svrluga had a really, really good piece written about this last night. He was on with the Junkies earlier, kind of alluded to this as well, that there was a vibe. And after he mentioned it, I could kind of see it in my interactions over there as well, that there was a vibe of comfortability. And when you get too comfortable in professional sports, you get complacent.
Yeah.
And so there was this, they didn't have an urgency about them. And so when you have stretches like this, and you continue to lose, there's not any sort of motivation to get out of it. There's not any sort of motivation to get back in the win column like it used to be. I mean,
it's like a lack of accountability.
Yeah, 100%. It used to be that when you'd come on this radio station, you could break down every single game because wins and losses mattered. You could talk, hey, I didn't like that pitching change last night, or hey, I didn't like this lineup decision. Not say you're doing that every day, but you could do that. When's the last time we've talked about an individual game for the Nationals on this station?
No.
It hasn't been a long time because it doesn't matter because individual games don't matter.
I think also when the focus becomes what's happening off the field more, it lets you know it's time for a change. We haven't been talking about the games as much as we've been talking about what Davey said, what Rizzo needs to do. Are they going to change? But I'm very surprised by the timing.
100%. That's the shocking part of it.
Right now, you can't tell me DeBartolo, like let's say you and I work together. Hell, we working together. What I'm talking about. And you have a lot of information, and I listen to what you're saying. I have a lot of information. You listen to me. I don't know it like you know it. You don't know my stuff like I know it. DeBartolo don't know all that stuff how Rizzo and his crew does. You know what I'm saying? They were leading, and I'm sure he was around, but he may not know it all. But as Landfill and I were talking earlier, and Landfill stated, the drafting hadn't been great over the last 10 years any damn way.
No.
Over a decade. And now, do they expect this dude to jump in with his lack of experience and all of a sudden just do it right? Now, the youthfulness may bring a little something into it. You know, people, old school dudes have a mindset, you know, and maybe just a fresh mindset may change up the trajectory of this squad.
So when Ken Rosenthal wrote that piece kind of scathing about the Nationals, what was that, about a month ago or so? And we were having extended discussions about this and where the Nationals were in terms of their rebuild and as an organization. The thing that I said then was they have to look in the mirror and make a decision on how they're going to operate.
Yeah.
And I think this is an opportunity for them to finally make that decision. Now, that's all it is. It's an opportunity. It's not saying they made the correct decision. It's not saying that they're going to make the correct decision. You know, if Mike DeBartolo is not ultimately the guy, or even if he is. They needed to look in the mirror and decide how they were going to operate. Mike Rizzo, to me, is a big market general manager, and he very well may find another job somewhere else, and he might be successful somewhere else, because I think you can look through Mike Rizzo's tenure, and you can find good. You can also find plenty of bad. And so, to me, when you look at the things that he excelled at, that's things that big market general managers need to be good at. He was good at the trades, and that's something that he's always been really, really good at. You can look and find a few. You know, we can talk about the Scherzer-Turner deal, whether that's good or not. But for every Scherzer-Turner deal, there's, you know, getting Lane Thomas for John Lester and turning Lane Thomas into a nice piece. And obviously, we can talk about 3 All-Stars now coming back in the Juan Soto trade. His ability in the trade market was fantastic. I think when he was given the resources, he was good at signing free agents. Max Scherzer, look at the conversation when he was signed here. It was, this is the worst pitcher contract of all time, this and that, and we're going to look back at that as maybe the greatest free agent pitcher contract up until this point in history. You look at Patrick Corbin. I know over the course of his contract, he wasn't great. They don't win the World Series in 2019 without Patrick Corbin.
Yeah.
And so I think when you look at those sorts of things, that's what a big market general manager needs to excel at, and I think he did that. The issue is this team started operating as a small market following the World Series in 2019, and Mike Rizzo does not operate well as a small market general manager because the onus then is put on drafting and development.
They don't coincide. They don't work well together.
And I don't know.
I got to spend some money, and you don't want to spend some money.
So here's where I
can't
think
build a team like that.
Here's where I think it's interesting, because we talk about, you know, whether they're going to operate as a small market or not, and I'm not sure they're given the resources to do so. Because as much as we're talking about the on-field product, right? Like, it's pretty obvious to look at payroll. Is it a Mike Rizzo issue that they didn't have that pitching machine that we were talking about last week with Spencer Nussbaum, I believe, on the station here, talking about this specific machine that they didn't have that so many other teams, and you talked about not having the resources. Is that a Rizzo thing or is that a Lerner thing? I would lean to think that Rizzo has no issue having that machine, and that's probably a Lerner thing. Yeah. So what's to make me think that they have the necessary resources in the scouting department, in the development department? And so, look, has Rizzo been good at the draft and develop? Absolutely not. Has he been given the resources? I can't answer that.
Well, the thing of it, though, you're not going to fire the owner. The owner can't fire himself.
Right.
So you know what happens next. So I would say this. At this point, fans, we were clamoring. A lot of people clamoring for David to be gone. After he made the comment about it, you can't blame the coaches. Well, now, put that pressure on your ownership. Make your ownership understand DC is not small market.
It's not.
And if you're not selling the damn team, spend some damn money. Okay? That's the mindset. Because I think people have to understand when you tell someone we're not going to support you, but you show up every day, you're supporting them. You have to make them understand that, you know what? You can't be an owner and live off of what happened in 2019. Okay? We want another one. Let's go get another. Hell, Dan Snyder ran through here and was showing all these trophies that he had nothing to do with. He's gone. And now you see things moving in a different direction. Maybe, just maybe, the ultimate thing, we always say things start from the top, starts from the head. The head is ownership. Maybe ownership has to change for things to get better over there.
100%. 100%. And I think that's the big question in all of this, because moving on from Rizzo, I think there's mixed feelings around the fan base. I think a majority of people are probably on board with it. There are still plenty of Rizzo supporters as well. I don't think there's as
Some
many.
People look at the end result. Are we winning? No.
Exactly.
Okay, so
I don't think
you can't blame one set. You have to blame everybody. From ownership on down, is somebody is messing up.
And I don't think that, there's as many Davey supporters. Look, you're always going to be thankful for 2019, but that was a long, long time ago. The big question, to your point, BMitch, is now that you move on from Rizzo and Davey, does that mean that ownership is going to change the onus? I tweeted a little bit of a poll last night, got 460 votes, so not comprehensive, but a little bit of a sample size. Do you have faith that with the firings of Rizzo and Martinez, that ownership will seriously invest in the team now? The overwhelming majority, 93.9%, said no. And I guarantee if we got thousands and thousands of votes, it would still be 90% no. Mm-hmm. And that's the issue, is just because you move on from Rizzo, just because you move on from Davey, doesn't suddenly mean that all of this is going to change. I think it opens the door, because to me, like you said, ownership can't get fired. And so continuing down the same vicious cycle of Davey is the manager and Mike Rizzo is the general manager and the learners owning the team was just never going to turn the corner. Because if they were going to, it would have been this year, when you have James Wood as an all-star and potential MVP candidate, Mackenzie Gore as in the Cy Young conversation and an all-star, CJ Abrams having a really good season, and you're still 16 games under 500 entering the second week of July. So something needed to change. And if ownership's not going to change, then something else needed to change. They ultimately decide it's going to be Rizzo and Dave Martinez. We'll see if they end up making some meaningful changes to the way that they operate. If not, then maybe we're just having the same conversation over and over again about whoever takes over, because ownership doesn't make the serious investment that they absolutely need.